Today we have Virgil and his team from the Protected Seas organization, and many of you may not be aware of their group, but they have been working on marine maps and marine enforcement tools and technologies that help to provide information out on the water and for the boating and fishing community. They work across both local, state, and federal organizations and agencies, and have really kind of tackled some of the challenges that all of us are facing as we're trying to increase awareness of and compliance for marine protected areas and navigate the highly complex fishing regulatory framework that's out there on the water for our boating and fishing community. We would like to introduce Protected Seas and their team today. We have Virgil. And with that, we at the CMSF really thank you for joining us, and I'll hand it off to Virgil. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ricky, and a special thanks to the California Marine Sanctuary Foundation for co-hosting today. I'm Virgil Zetterland. I'm Director at Protected Seas. Some quick logistics for our webinar. If you have questions during the webinar, please, or comments, please put them in the Q&A box that you should see in your Zoom controls. And after the presentation slides, we'll open the floor to discussion and Q&A. We will have a couple interactive polls during the presentation, so we look forward to getting some interaction with you all in this format. Who is Protected Seas? We're a private California organization under the Anthropocene Institute, and our key mission is to help solve tough conservation challenges by improving collection and access to information. Ultimately, we're trying to help use data and technology to answer questions about how the ocean is managed or should be managed for conservation, what species and habitats are protected, where are protected areas most affected by human use, and how can we overall reduce human pressure on the oceans. To accomplish this, we've got quite a diverse team that runs the range from full stack system engineering and development through geographic information system mapping specialists to basic web design and art, and then our very specialized ocean law team. We're actually lawyers with experience in ocean law and policy that help us review all this MPA information, as well as do outreach and coordination. Together, our team has over 20 years of software design experience and 15 years in ocean applications, policy, and science. Our key focus in today's meeting is marine protected areas. These are a key component in global efforts to protect ocean ecosystems from unsustainable use. They help improve biodiversity and increase biomass by limiting human activity. And MPAs have, they don't just help fish inside the MPAs. MPAs have documented spillover benefits to nearby ecosystems. So effective MPAs not only increase fish inside the protected areas, but outside as well. And that's going to bring us to our first poll question, which is, how many areas does the California State Marine Protected Area Network include? All right. Claire or Timo, if we've gotten people's input, could we see the results? All right, well, we have a pretty informed audience here. The correct answer is 124, which 71% of you got correct. So give everybody props for being well informed about California. So, so with marine protected areas established, for these to succeed, ocean users need to know where they are, what resources are protected, and how that impacts the types of human activities that are allowed, restricted, or prohibited. And that brings us to our key contribution today in this area, which is our set of free online maps of California's marine protected areas. These are all findable at mpa.protectedseas.net. And now I'm just going to do some short demonstrations of how these maps work and the type of information you can find. So if you go to our map link, this map should work well on most modern internet browsers. When you first load the map, you'll see sort of a zoomed out view of marine protected areas around the world. And these will be colored basically by overall protection level. So red areas are no-take areas, and then decreasing shades of blue indicate decreased protection. If you'd like to focus on a specific place, you can very easily just use our go-to menu to drill down to an area of interest. You can also, just like a Google map, zoom or pan. Or if you're searching for a specific area, you can actually just look up the name. So if, for example, we look for Point Reyes and select the Marine Reserve, the map will actually automatically zoom and highlight that area. Now, once you've highlighted an area, what you'll see is we have quite a bit of information available. Things like the general purpose of the area, key restrictions, exceptions, as well as links to the regulations, official websites, and contact information for the management authorities. At any point, if you just like to see what areas apply in an area, you can just click on the map, and that'll also trigger a search. You can view by regulation, which is sorted roughly from most restrictive to least restrictive. You can also see the list in terms of the area names or the managing authorities. And once again, if you'd like to drill down into an area, just click the little blue arrow, which will open the details. If you find we're missing information or think we should include some additional information, if you click the feedback button on any area, that'll go directly back to our team. Now, our map does include more than just the official marine protected areas. We do include most area-based fishing regulations and fisheries management, and that's why you see so many areas on this map, because we wanted to make basically a single map that made it easier to find all types of regulations that apply to people out on the water. For additional context, we have some extra layers as well. You can turn on a marine charts overlay. So if you'd like to see how these areas really directly relate to marine navigation aids like buoys and markers or to the bottom depths, you can display all this in the context of the charts. If you're specifically interested in commercial or recreational fishing prohibitions, we also have specific layers that will highlight these. So in this case, commercial fishing prohibitions are now outlined in orange. Now, most people don't use desktop or laptop computers out on the water, so we wanted to make this information a little more accessible. So we made our map also friendly on mobile phones and tablets. You don't need to remember a different link. If you go to our mpa.protectedseas.net, it'll detect if you're on a phone and ask if you'd like to go to our mobile map. All the same information is available on the mobile map. You can still drill down with our regions menu. You can still search by area name. But you can also, if you're out on the water, you can click the little locate me button and it will jump the map to your current location. Now don't worry, we don't track your location in any way. That's simply used if you give it permission to help center the map for you. Just like in the big map, you can also click on any area, open up the details. Because the phone screen is smaller, We've given buttons basically to switch between the map view and the text view. And while this map still has the limitation that you need to be near enough to shore to have an internet connection, we are working with companies like Garmin and Avionics to integrate the same information into chart plotters and fish finders, so it's available at all times offline as well as online. Back in the desktop context, our maps are also available to help with large-scale assessments like progress towards UN ocean protection goals. All this data we're compiling is made available for free and can be downloaded directly from our website for use with attribution and other projects. We've also been partnering to provide some specific online tools. This example here is our Sea-Sketch EEZ protection level calculator. It's a partnership with the Sea-Sketch project, which is based at University of California, Santa Barbara. And this tool provides an easy way to estimate how a country's percent protection coverage of their exclusive economic zones would change with proposed MPAs. So what we've done here is our base map is once again our California MPAs as well as some fisheries management areas. And for purposes of illustration, I've created 3 essentially fake proposed marine protected areas, these large areas in red and smaller area in bright blue. And what we can do with this tool is easily ask the question, if these proposed areas became real MPAs, how would that change the percent of protection in the US EEZ? And so I can simply click the report button and it'll calculate the area of these areas and then how that changes the relative coverage nationwide. So in this case, again, these very hypothetical areas would increase US no-take levels by about 1% and highly restrictive levels by an additional 1% and take about 2% out of the least restrictive category. So again, this tool is really a tool to sandbox how changes in areas or new areas would affect national or regional statistics. For more free-flowing or less constrained data use, we also are available on the ESRI online platform through a generous grant, conservation grant from ESRI. So our online ArcMap portal, again, has a copy of the full data set with a lot of powerful tools. So from this portal, you can intermix third-party data like bathymetry, essential fish habitat. If you have your own Arc Online account, you can even import your own data. You can clip or export data. You can create custom filters. So one of the fields in our database are species of concern for the individual areas. So for example, we created a custom filter that searches for rockfish. And if we apply that filter, it will quickly basically filter the data set for areas that specifically mentioned rockfish as one of their conservation goals. Similar to our other web map, the full details are available. Other tools on the Esri platform, for example, looking at how many areas overlap, how many regulatory areas overlap off the California coasts. So in this map, we created a hex grid of the ocean off California and colored it by overlapping areas. And what it illustrates is there is significant overlap. So that concludes our very rapid demos. And so we're up to our next poll. And we'll get this live here. All right, so let me get us to poll number 2. True or false, all MPAs heavily restrict fishing? All right, could we see the results? All right, yeah, I think, again, our informed audience got this fundamentally correct. That is false. In reality, not all MPAs are created equal. So it's important in evaluating an MPA or a network of MPAs to consider what rules they've actually implemented. It's especially important to document the types of human activities and fishing gears allowed, as some, like bottom trawling, are much more damaging than others. This also gives us a way to establish basic metrics to compare areas across regions and countries. In our data, we decided it was important to give sites an overall protection level score so that our users could quickly determine where restrictions are strongest. So we use a 1 through 5 scoring system. Our scale starts at level 1, which essentially reflects the general state or federal fishing rules. And it ends at level 5, which is a no-take area with few to no exceptions. How we determine those scores is based on a fairly simple process. We first ask, is an area no-take or no-take with very limited exceptions? If so, this will receive our level 4 or 5. If not, we check if an area has substantial restrictions on commercial and or recreational fishing with an emphasis on commercial fishing. If so, this area will likely receive a 3. Level 2 sites are areas that typically only restrict a single fishing gear or perhaps have rules about a specific fish species. And once again, our lowest score indicates areas that use the same rules as the background state or federal fishing law. If we look at these areas in terms of California, here's how, as a percent of area, California's MPAs and fisheries management areas score. So in state waters, which is out to 3 nautical miles, no-take areas account for just under 9% of total area, with heavily restricted picking up almost another 5%. If we look out into the federal water, while federal water contains a fair degree of moderately restrictive areas, they have very low percentage in terms of total area of no-take. One also thing to note, in California waters, both state and federal, is very little of that water is regulated only at the level 1 or least restrictive. So 99% or more of the area is covered by fishing regulations in addition to the base level. International organizations like the UN are formulating goals for ocean protection. And once again, because areas have different impacts based on their regulations, it's important when stating targets to specify a minimum level of protection to qualify. For example, IUCN right now has what they call their 30 by 30 resolution, which is to protect 30% of the ocean by 2030. And right now they're still developing exactly what that definition of protected means. And we can see, again, just in our California statistics, if moderately restrictive and higher would be their minimal acceptable definition, then California state waters and federal waters are actually pretty close to 30%. But if they use a definition more centered on most restrictive or no take, then quite a bit more area would have to be protected, particularly in federal water, to meet the target. Now, this is looking at the highest level of restriction when there are overlaps. And again, overlaps are in fact important because, as this graphic shows, off California, there are very few places with less than 6 overlapping regulations, and many places, especially as you come into the nearshore environment and state water, where there are 13 or more overlapping regulations. And you can't necessarily assume that more overlapping regulations improve the overall protection. So if we zoom in to Monterey Bay area, on the left, again, colored by number of overlapping regulations. We can see that both inside and outside the bay, there are anywhere from 9 to about 15 regulations in each spot. But on the right, if instead we count how many commercial fishing gear types are prohibited in each of the same areas, there's a pretty stark difference between inside the bay and outside the bay. So inside the bay, typically 5 to 8 commercial fishing gears are prohibited, but outside the bay, 1 or 2, and in some cases none. And again, this is still with the same level of overlapping regulations in and out. Because we code these individual fishing gear restrictions, we can also look more specifically. So in this case, looking at bottom trawling, which is one of the more destructive fishing methods, particularly to ground fish and bottom habitats, we can see that fortunately off California, both in state and federal water, bottom trawling is for the most part prohibited and heavily restricted, even in those areas where it is allowed. And this provides a lot of protection for the rockfish population. Not all take is about fish. Kelp is also a critical component in the California seascape, and it undergoes a lot of human pressure. Using our data, we did an analysis of kelp protection relative to the identified kelp beds. We found that 15% by area of state identified kelp beds are totally protected, and 41% by areas protected from commercial take. Now, this is done both through a combination of the California MPA network as well as state-managed commercial kelp leasing restrictions. And if you're interested in kelp, our ESRI data portal has an interactive map where you can explore this information. Where do we go from here? We're continually updating our maps as things change. This project is ongoing and constantly being updated. We're working to complete global coverage by 2022. And we're also continually expanding the tools to evaluate this information in the context of ocean protection with a specific interest in these MPA overlaps and how do we properly assess total protection when there's overlapping management. How can you help? We hope that these maps can help everyone stay safe and compliant out in the water, can help inform both the public, management, and advocates about the state of ocean protection and help inform new protections where they're needed. And we certainly invite your feedback on how we can make these tools and this data more impactful for you and your organizations. And so with that, once again, we'd like to thank everyone for coming today. And at this point, we're going to turn to our Q&A and open the discussion.
Thank you so much, Virgil. Really appreciate it. Lots of fantastic and very complex information in there. And you know, we really urge anybody who has questions or input or thoughts on how this type of information can be more accessible to help us increase awareness of and compliance for, you know, both fishing regulations and access to our ocean as well as stewardship of MPAs. Please feel free to join in.
Yeah, and during the Q&A, I'll just leave this slide up. This is sort of the key links. We are recording the presentation today, so we will post a link on our website to the recording once it's up, as well as a copy of the slides for everyone to download if you're interested. If you'd like additional information that we haven't covered today or think this presentation would be helpful to your organization directly, certainly reach out at info@protectedseas.net, and we're happy to schedule follow-on meetups. All right, a couple of questions so far. Can the mobile version be used without cell coverage? Unfortunately, that is a limitation right now, and that's why we're pushing to get groups like Garmin or Navionics to build this into their boating navigation apps that allow for download ahead of time. We're also hoping that some new apps coming out from BOEM called a new app called Ocean Alert may include this data, and it will work offline. Another question on fishing regulation changes. So we use a number of methods to keep the information up to date. For US regulations, we're fortunate that the Federal Register, as well as official state sites, give us a reasonably stable web presence to sort of check for changes on an automated basis. So we use a number of services to try and give us proactive alert when regulations have been changed. We also, through our partnership with the NOAA MPA Center, get notification of updates and update accordingly. So there's not specifically a set schedule. We try and update as soon as possible, or in many cases in the US, we get pre-notice of changes and are able to have that ready on day one. So there's a question about the accuracy of our information. So, that is certainly important, and we do have to disclaimer that this is done on our best available effort. What we do, anytime we complete a region, we go back to all the management authority contacts that help provide us information and ask that they review the information for accuracy and completeness. I'd like to say that every management authority gets back to us in a timely manner with a review, and unfortunately that's not always the case. And again, that's why we've tried to provide multiple ways for feedback so that the broader ocean community can also point out if they think we've got something incorrect or incomplete. We're happy to get in there and change it. Okay.
We have a question from a participant. Dick Og, if you want to ask your question.
Thank you very much. I'm a commercial. Can you hear me okay? Hello?
Yep, I can hear you.
I don't. You can hear me? Okay, thank you. I'm a commercial fisherman here in Bodega Bay, and I'm curious as to, and you've mentioned some of the aspects of, implementing these different maps into different programs. We use CMAP, Navionics, Global Tech, not Global Tech. There are a number of different maps that we do use. Are they going to be continually updated so that, we as fishermen understand the regulations and don't accidentally do something that we shouldn't do? Is that going to be possible, or is it done on a regular basis?
That is certainly our intent in working with these commercial companies. So again, unfortunately, none of them have quite gotten to the point of sort of product release and commercial availability at this point, but it is certainly in our discussions, it's setting up systems to provide this information continuously as it's updated, because again, we share that same concern, is the people out on the water are really the ones who most need this information. We believe the vast majority of fishermen, boaters, everyone want to protect the environment, want to keep the ocean sustainable, and this sort of information is important for that.
Right. Okay. Well, I really do appreciate that, because that is extremely important to us, and many times it's difficult for us to be sure where the lines are drawn, and and if we don't have them on our maps, we really don't know. And accidents can happen. People can travel into areas they shouldn't, and that's a big concern of mine. Especially if we're fishing for salmon, which is a pelagic species, and moves up and down the coastline. We need to know exactly where we can and can't travel. So I really do appreciate any effort to update these maps and keep them as accurate as possible. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for expressing, the opinion and the perspective of the commercial and recreational fishing community. And, you know, just to further clarify that, I mean, this is such, you know, more of a complex issue, is that right now there are, for some of those products, there are actually, you know, the option to add on the marine protected areas. And you know how tough that is as a boater, right? When you're installing all these software updates, it's not actually the default. It's something you've got to, you know to add on as a layer. And like Virgil said, the goal is to get us to the point where, you know, just like underwater navigational obstacles, that the marine protected areas are a layer that just are the default, you know, for any of these navionics Garmins and different kinds of, you know, map plotters that we all use. So I again, thank you so much for your comments, and we need to hear more from this community.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So some additional questions. A question, are we working with Department of Fish and Wildlife to incorporate underwater photos and videos of MPA sites? That has not been our focus to date. We've been very much focused on the fundamental research around the regulations and properly capturing, again, these key restrictions and exceptions, as well as the individual gear restrictions. It's certainly something we'd have an interest in if, you know, with willing partners who more sort of focus on that sort of outreach, educational, informative information. You know, our database certainly support adding that in and making the maps more of sort of an educational tool and not just a regulatory tool.
We have another question from the audience. Is it possible to download the files from Protected Seas and in multiple formats? And the answer is yes. You can download all our data on our website in the shapefile format.
And also a question about, can all these links be found from one place? If you go to just protectedseas.net, our regular website, right at the top is the section on MPA mapping. The first link goes to the interactive desktop and mobile maps, and then the MPA tools link will take you to the C-Sketch and Esri tools. Stay here for a couple more minutes. We did have one last poll for our attendees, just to give us some, again, direct feedback on the usefulness of webinars like this. And our information is, you know, we really are interested, is this type of information and these type of products something you would use or recommend? Okay, we've got another question about what do we mean by partners on this project. So our key partner in this project is actually the NOAA Marine Protected Area Center. And we have an established public-private partnership with NOAA as it relates to the US data. So we help sort of do a lot of the work to feed information on and create these maps and data. They do sort of the quality control and analysis that the things are fundamentally correct, and this data is used both on our own products and in some of the federal as input basically into other federal products and submissions to IUCN. We certainly have, you know, partners in a more loose sense of individual management organizations and NGOs like the California Marine Sanctuary Foundation that help do outreach that these tools available, help proactively let us know as regulations are likely changing. Again, everything you've seen here is freely available, all the way from the interfaces and interactive tools down to the raw data. We just ask for attribution, basically, that they come from the Protected Seas project. And it is certainly our intent to make this, basically keep this project going for the future. So this is not a term limited project. This is a permanent project of Protected Seas. All right, well, it would appear at the moment there are no additional questions. We'll give everybody just a few more seconds. And otherwise, again, we really appreciate everyone taking time out on a Friday to attend our webinar, and we look forward to your feedback.
Thank you so much, Virgil, and thank you everyone for participating, and feel free to contact Protected Seas or CMSF for other information in the future. Take care. Happy Friday.